Hello. Hello, everyone. Everyone that's here live, everyone that will be live when I'm not watching the replay. It's good to be here with you all. Hope I didn't mess up your schedules by inserting this guy in unexpectedly. But I was just looking at events that Lisa and I are planning for the rest of the year, plus all of the holidays and the like that are going to be going on. And have wanted to do some workshops about some subjects in specific, and really focusing on the non-dual and the self-inquiry and meditation. And bring Lisa more into teaching more about the self-growth, personal growth, and energy healing, and the like. So we're just kind of working out how that was going to happen. And so we've kind of come up with a schedule, and to fit it all in and around holidays and the like, I decided to do a Tea with G this week, and next week to do the first in a series of 3 half-day retreats that are going to come up. And then we're going to be doing one that we'll be announcing this week that we'll be teaching together. And I'll tell you all about that one. But I suspect that many of you who will be very interested in the retreats won't be so interested in the ones I'll be doing with her, because I spend some of the time doing stuff that's very much oriented towards self-inquiry and non-dual inquiry, and a lot that's oriented towards trauma relief, meridian tapping, energy healing, and that sort of thing. And some people are interested in both. Some are only interested in the energy healing. Some are only interested in the non-dual. And I'm trying to expand. I'm looking to train some teachers in both camps in the not too distant future, practitioners and teachers. So next week I'll be doing the first. If you got the email, then you know all about it. The first one next week will be called Finding I Am. And it's really going to be a focus on the meditation and the inquiry into really the fundamental primary experience that we all have, which is that sense I am, which is the primary experience of every sentient being. And it is, if you look at the teachings of Nisargadatta Maharaj, and I'll be basing the entire retreat on it's a small book that was which is a compilation of quotes from Nisargadatta Maharaj, all about the I Am. It mentions it in every single quote. It was put together by a fellow named Pradeep Apte. Somebody else, like Jerry Katz, I think was his name. There's 231 quotes in that. He whittled it down to 57, which made for a good meditation, which those of you who may have seen it, I did a reading of that, which I so loved, and did it in the form of a meditation. And it'll be based on that, because it is about the I Am, the focusing of the I Am, and going beyond the I Am, which is tricky. because you can have an awareness of the fact that even the I Am is an experience that one has, but you can't actually, there's no way you can, through mere attention or focus of attention, go beyond it. Bringing your capacity to really focus attention on the sense I am is as far as you can go in a practice. And that is the practice, the only practice that I know of that Nisargadatta himself recommended, proposed to anybody. Ramana Maharshi had many different practices he gave to people, recommended all sorts of stuff. Buddha, just an endless number that he did, ranging from the most pure non-dual down to just the most mundane kind of things in terms of the practice of how to live daily life. But Nisargadatta was just, that was it. Boom, just be good to each other, be kind, lead a simple, honest life, and this. And as I was going through that, I realized that that's my only practice. That focusing of meditation on the I am is the only practice I do. It's my only meditation practice. That and try to lead a simple, honest, kind, loving, compassionate life. And so I have for a while wanted to do something about this, and I finally decided to do it. It was time. That I'm going to also do something on Balyani's, another workshop on Balyani's Who Knows Their Self, Knows Their Lord, which I've also done a reading on. And I'm also going to do one on the Ribhu Gita, which I'm gearing up now to do the reading on. That'll be the next thing I do a reading on. Those are all going to be coming up. Those of you who are interested and have not yet signed up, here's the link to go there and sign up. You can do them one at a time, or you can sign up and save $50 and sign up for all of them together. The plan right now is to do one next week, then 2 weeks later, and then one 3 weeks after that. I may have to stretch it out. I'm going away to my son's. His wife's mother passed away recently. And she donated her body to science. So they're having a celebration of her life coming up. So I'm going to go down and spend some time with them. Other things around holidays and the like. So the dates may have to shift a bit, but by the end of the year, I'll be doing all three. And as I said, I'm going to be doing something with Lisa as well. And at the beginning of the year, some trainings of some sort for people who are really interested in helping people in the way that I do. And I'm also looking into some other kinds of trainings for me in terms of the way that I help people. So all of that's coming up. So get over there and sign up. I want to see you. I expect to see you there. It all dovetails neatly because I'm actually going to organize and structure these retreats, especially so that the last section of them, because they're going to go for 4 hours, will be focused on integration. Because it's something I see that doesn't get a lot of attention, especially in a lot of spiritual circles. How do we integrate it? And seeing the number of questions that I get about people who've had deep experiences and then struggle with their lives. I'm one of those. I'm one of those. I was on the mountaintop, and then suddenly I find myself in hell. I just struggle after struggle. It took me a very long time to kind of get feet, and I still find myself running into things that just like completely take me by surprise. So it's kind of what led me to the subject that I wanted to talk about today: awakened mind, surrendered mind. That we live in a very toxic time. We live in a very egotistical, materialistic time. A time where it's all about pushing through, being successful, getting to the top, celebrity, and success has come equated with financial abundance and the like, getting what you want. The idea of surrender is like weakness, right? I surrender is like weakness. There's a quote that I really love from a Christian mystic by the name of Anthony de Mello, a Catholic priest whose books were banned by the church, a modern one. He died in like 1980 something. Um, and the quote is, "Enlightenment is total surrender to the inevitable." It's such a beautiful, humbling way of looking at it. And it brings to mind Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. And even the stories of Buddha's own death, when he was surrendering his body, and the pain, the physical pain he was going through, and Christ struggling over what he was seeing was coming to pass. His own disciples falling asleep on him, and recognizing that he was about to be taken, and was going to undergo a complete humiliation, a complete misunderstanding of everything he had been teaching, even his oh, look at that. Camo's got their hold on a second, let me get rid of the label they have up there. A complete misunderstanding and misinterpreting, a perversion of everything he taught, which got worse as we've come to know, as we come to see. And just the struggle he had until he could finally let go. Not my will, but thine be done. And nobody was there. He was the only one there, and it's a mythological story. Unless he told this, this is what I went through to the disciples, which is highly unlikely, right? I mean, we don't really know where this came from, but the story, how the struggle anyone has to go through when they're confronted with what life is giving them, and you don't want it. You really want something else to be there. And yet something inside says the only way out is through. That there's a wisdom, the true awakened mind is the mind that surrenders to the inevitable. The path that is in front of you is the path to take. And to surrender to this moment, to surrender to every feeling that's going on in your body, to surrender to every thought that's running through your head. Now, that doesn't mean you agree with every thought. It doesn't mean that oh yeah, that thought's true. No, it's just, you don't fight it. You go, okay, there's that thought. There's the resistant mind. There's the fearful mind. There's the fearful sensation. There's the anxious feeling. There's the anxious thought. There's the unpleasant memory. There's the difficult experience. There's the resistance. It's all there. Right? And there's just this surrender to it. There's just this, yes, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. It's, if you can do it, try it right now. Whatever you're experiencing right now, this second. I mean, let's not make it theoretical. And just take a breath, let it out, and relax into whatever you happen to be experiencing in this moment. That is the awakened mind. That is the integration of or the adaptation of the whatever degree of awakening you've experienced into your the life experience that you're having. There's this mythology about awakening, a storyline about awakening, that somehow it's supposed to make human life suddenly perfectly blissful and harmonious. What it actually is a shift in our relationship with turmoil and conflict and difficulty. It's supposed to humble us in the face of it so that our hearts open. Our hearts become awakened with compassion. Because if I can open up and awaken and have a shift in my relationship to my own suffering, I become awakened to the suffering of others. And I realize the human potential for love. There was a woman who was eventually canonized. She became a nun and was canonized by the Catholic Church as a saint. Her name was Dorothy Day. She was 8 years old in 1906 during the great San Francisco earthquake, which just devastated the whole area. She was a little girl in Oakland, and she was completely stunned by the fact that after this earthquake, where the whole area was almost leveled, fires, it was a complete, obviously a disaster. And she just noticed how suddenly everybody was taking care of everybody. Strangers taking care of strangers. Her own parents were suddenly, didn't matter who they were, total strangers. Everyone was taking care of everyone. And she said, why can't we be like this all the time? And she ended up founding all sorts of charitable stuff. I think it was Catholic workforce charities or something like that, all sorts of food banks and kitchens and stuff. I remember the same thing. On 9/11, during the attack on the Twin Towers, I lived about 2 miles from Ground Zero in New York City. And the same thing. It was the same thing. It was very quiet. It was eerily quiet in New York City, but it was kind. It was just everyone was taking care of everyone. And you just have to ask, why can't we be like that all the time? Why can't we be taking care of each other all the time? I think this is what the deeper awakening is all about. I think this is what has to happen. The awakening of the mind brings the mind to surrender to the necessity of the compassionate heart. That it comes to where we really feel that sense of the suffering that humanity is going through. And now not just humanity, it's all the critters on the planet and the planet itself. Every bit of life on this planet is threatened. How can we not feel that? But yet there's a numbness around, isn't there? There's a coldness. This is what we have to allow ourselves to wake up to. And I dare say we're all a bit traumatized by it. We've all kind of shut down a bit, that we need to awaken a bit to. We need to become sensitized to again. And for me, the way to do that is to allow ourselves to open our hearts, to feel our bodies again, to reach out to one another, to I don't know. The next time you're in the grocery store or in a line someplace, just look around, notice the people. Find somebody you can do an act of kindness for. Anybody. Carry somebody's bag, Smile at the clerk. Ask how their day's going. See, everything is okay. If the guy in front of you is yelling, pay for something of theirs, or if you can, right? Or anything you can to just kind of bring some kindness, bring some joy. That's the awakening that is moving from here to here. That's the integration. That's the surrendered mind. And that's really what's been on my heart of late. So anyway, thank you all for being here. And I hope you'll join me. You'll join me on the retreats, and we can spread the love. So let me go back and say hello to everyone. Hello, Mary. Hello, Ava, the Savvy Stacker. Hiya. Hello, Robbie and Eliza. There's David and Elaine. Hello, hello. Hello, Roberto. And David. Hello, David. Darrow, Carl in Ireland. Rosario. Very good. Hello, Mark. Good evening from Sweden. We are spellbound by your words, GP. Others too, unfortunately. Abracadabra. I create as I speak. Indeed, we do. Karen, hello. Good to see you. Hello, Babaji and everyone. Hassan, hello, Hassan. GP. The way GP is facing the feeling. Hassan, totally once and for all. Thank you, GP. It's me. Hello, me. Yes, the feeling, I'm feeling all these things. Hi, GP. I've been wondering lately, is my desire to learn from you just my mind trying to obtain information and wisdom that I have yet earned? Like I'm cheating on an exam I've not studied for? Yes, stop cheating. It reminds me of the joke from Woody Allen. He said he got kicked out of school for cheating on a metaphysics test. He got caught looking into the soul of the person next to him. No. When you're listening to someone who is speaking from the heart and speaking wisdom, it's your heart that is trying to partake, right? Yes, the mind's involved. The mind isn't an enemy, right? When we're relying simply on the knowledge to the exclusion of what that knowledge is pointing at, that's where we get stuck. And the only reason we get stuck there is because when we get disconnected from our hearts and from our bodies, right, because of trauma, basically, we tend to go into our minds as a way of escaping from the traumatic material, the unprocessed hurt and pain that we've experienced. And therefore, we rely on thinking, and thus we get out of balance. And so we want to try to think our way through life. And so we're not integrated. We're out of balance. And so we become heavy on the intellectual part. Now we then criticize, we try to get spiritual, and then we criticize the mind, and then we try to get, and we try to go the other direction. There's nothing wrong with the mind. It's just been overused. It's like doing all sorts of curls with your left hand, right? and none with your right, right? This is a huge muscle, and this one's really weak, and then you forget that and never do anything with this one, right? You want to bring everything into balance. There's the right use of the mind. There's a use of a higher intellect. Right? It's part of the deal. Matter of fact, even Nisargadatta said, those that have a sharp intellect make fast progress. And so you want to listen to teachers who are articulate, who can, who are able of articulating the subtle truths in such a way that you can follow. It's a good thing. And I'm very happy with the fact that I can do that, right? That I can guide you to the fine points so that you can get it. And also that I can use stories and things like that to touch the heart so that it's a flow between the two, right? And so that you can grasp that, so that there's both an opening on all levels and also touching into the body, because it has to be something that opens up the whole of your humanity and heals the traumas that are the things that forced you to be more reliant on your head in the first place. But so the craving for knowledge can be an attempt to escape from the difficult material that we have been avoiding, right? Or it can be a deep desire to know the truth. Right? And that's the path we're on, of being able to discern the difference. And for many, many people, they get stuck in their head, and the non-dual inquiry can become a very intellectual pursuit. And you can see how that would work, because because it's intellectually very satisfying. It's very concise and it's very precise. Right? But that's when it becomes too precise. In Zen, that's when you get the Zen stick up the side of your head, and you'll see, especially in Buddhism, you'll see how they are really, really good at managing both sides of that, at bringing out both sides of that. In Vipassana, well, in insight meditation, and it's not that way in all forms of Vipassana, but it's about allowing this stuff to come up, the traumatic material and the like, somatic, the body-based forms of treating trauma are all about that. Even though they don't have that spiritual component, they get to that point of releasing from the body the various kinds of blocks and like. There's all sorts of wonderful exercises you can do with the body to release the traumas, which I'm a big fan of. I don't see any contradiction or conflict between that and non-dual self-inquiry. And I engage with both. That's why I use tapping. In fact, I found that the big block to people having a deeper awakening hasn't been a lack of understanding of the non-dual. It's because they have not had a proper understanding of how to process their own shit. I know that was a big thing for me. Of course, this was before people really even knew how to do that kind of stuff. So it was easy to get stuck there. So let's see if I cover that. So no, you're not cheating on an exam. The very fact that you're asking the question means that you're sensitive to the fact that you don't want to cheat, right? That you really want to do it correctly, and so you want to learn from somebody who can teach you correctly. So makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You only want to learn from somebody who can teach correctly. You don't want to learn from somebody who's only done half the job, or at least is doing the job correctly, even if they haven't completed the job. Right? So we do live in a time where all the tools you need are available. And very competent people are available and more than willing to help. So it's definitely a great time to be on the spiritual path. And it's also a confusing time because it's very cluttered, right? And it's a toxic time because there's just an acceleration of disconnect. We live in a traumatizing time, the worst the world's ever seen. So it's a very difficult time. So I'm really glad that you're cautious, but great. Yeah, you're not cheating. You're not cheating. And I love the fact that you're so hungry for knowledge and that you're so very sincere. And if you were really just trying to grab knowledge, I'd sense it, and I'd tell you. If it was just for your head. Elaine, hi GP. Hi Elaine. Oh, so good to see you. Ido Catherine. Hello, Ida. Thank you for being here, GP. Endless love and gratitude for you. Endless love for you. Hello, Patricia, in the City of Angels. KO, hi GP. Can you speak a bit about no self? Indeed, I can. I love that subject. I do love that subject. It's one of the main premises of Buddhism. And I'll preface it with a wonderful story. There was a very famous, in Buddhist time, there was a famous philosopher who came to see Buddha and said and asked him, "Sir, do you teach no self?" He was a very erudite fellow, right? You know, and Buddha didn't answer him. He was kind of taken aback. Ananda was there, his assistant. And so he said, "But do you teach that there's a self?" And again, Buddha just didn't bother answering him. And he got very irritated and just huffed off. And Ananda said, "Master, of course you teach no self. Why didn't you answer him?" He said he didn't really want to know. He just wanted more fodder for his mind. He wasn't the least bit interested in alleviating suffering. Now, I'm not saying that for you, but you can see what an important subject it is. And it's not something that we should regard as philosophical, because Buddha didn't. So when we look at this question of self and no self, it's all around the subject of what creates suffering in us. And what creates suffering in us is our identification with all form as a self. Look, take any object. Take these lovely little bamboo. My lucky bamboo behind me here, right? It's empty, right? In Buddhism, they say this is empty. You go, well, empty? What in the world? How do you mean it's empty? Look, you got leaves in the stem, and there's molecules in there. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. Chlorophyll. There's all sorts of things going on there. What do you mean it's empty? Well, it's empty. It's full of all sorts of stuff except a self. Right? There's no self in there. You can take that apart and you will not find a bamboo. There's no such thing as a bamboo molecule. Right? They're all a bunch of things. Everything that is made of is not a bamboo. So what's the bamboo? The bamboo is empty of a self. It's no self. Look everywhere in this body and you will not find a GP. There's no GP molecule. There's no GP cell. There's no GP organ. Where's GP? There isn't one. There's just all of this stuff that is acting in unison, literally tens of trillions of cells, all dancing together in a miraculous and mysterious way, functioning as a whole, interdependent, intertwined, everything designed to work within a whole, right? as if there was a whole in advance, but the whole didn't exist until they were here, completely interdependent upon one another. And yet, without them, there is no whole. There is no GP. There's no one here. There's no self. So self is simply a concept projected on a very elaborate functioning that is constantly changing. It's never fixed, never the same, any moment. So there's no self. There's not a fixed thing anywhere. That's all it means. Now, in Buddhism, that's the way they would say it. Right? Now, Buddha, when he meant that, he did not say, he wasn't implying that nothing existed, right? Because obviously something does. There is something that is self-aware, right? You know you are. Right? But what he was doing was making sure that did not think of myself as something. I can't think of me as a thing. The moment I do, I become outlined. I am a thing as opposed to something else. So to think of myself, I have to think of myself as no self or an infinite self, which is like, how do you think of an infinite self without any boundaries? It becomes no self. So self, no self become one and the same. This is, it's a great question, and you can see how very subtle it is. Because in the Hindu or Advaita tradition, they would talk about the self. Nisargadatta, Ramana Maharshi, they would speak of the self, right? This is what you would hear in that whole tradition. In Buddhism, you'd hear no self, but they're talking about exactly the same thing. No self doesn't mean non-existent. They would say you can't say it exists, you can't say it doesn't exist. It's just isness or suchness or beingness. I am, obviously, right? You are. You can't say you're not. But what are you? As what do you exist? You can't say. If you point to anything and say, this is what I am, right? You've put an outline around it. You've projected a self. There is a sense of self, right? I mean, I know that I am. How do I know? I don't know. Nisargadatta put it this way. He said, I am that by which I know I am. That's it. It's so very, very subtle. But it's so, at the same time, it's so obvious. And if you just go, oh, right, I know that I am, and full stop, just stop there, and not try to attach any kind of attributes on the top of that, but just notice that there are just an infinite number of attributes. Well, that's as far as you need to go. There it is. I am, and there's all these attributes that I am aware of. All of these are within my awareness. They are like swimming within my awareness, and all of these things are within the awareness. And I have a point of reference within the awareness, but I'm aware of the point of reference within the awareness. Am I not? And so even the word I then becomes just a word that I'm aware of, and it's not a self. And so what happens then is that there are experiences that are arising. Right? So I have a pleasure, I have a pain. Right? And they're definitely experiences. I really have the experience of pleasure and pain, of ups and downs, of fame and disrepute, of wonder and of disinterest. Right? All of these are experienced. Right? But with no self, they are experienced without suffering. There's nobody to suffer. It's just pure experience without any kind of intermediary. An experience happens, and something arises that says, I like this experience, I want more, attachment. Then the experience passes away, as all experiences do. And then there's the experience of loss, suffering. Or experience arises that you don't like, try to avoid, push away, you can't get rid of it, experience of suffering. Right? Or then it finally passes away, all experience does, there's experience of relief, happiness. Right? But there's a sense of something or someone that arises claims ownership of the experience, and then creates either enjoyment or suffering. These always vibrate back and forth, back and forth. That I that arises is the fiction. It is imaginary. And it is just something that arises in front of that which is just pure existence itself, which is not a self. So the sense of self arises, but it isn't a self. It is only an image in consciousness. It's not an actual being. It's just the thought of a being. Are you following this? Because this is where this is where it's important, because this is where suffering ends. Right? I was speaking before, it was, it's just kind of the general and the absolute. Here's where the rubber meets the road, so that we can bring it to bear. So we're not like the philosopher, we're like the Buddha, because we're here to end suffering. And the suffering arises because somebody arises who has a preference for this over that, who takes ownership over this, over that, who sees themselves as a person engaging with life, rather than life itself, where simply the ups and downs, the ins and outs that are the nature of life. There's somebody there who is a limited sense that says, I want this, I don't want that, I like this, I don't like this, and therefore suffers as a result of it. But that is simply something that has arisen on this screen and is being witnessed by that which is no self at all, just pure, infinite awareness. Very hard to put that into words. How is that, KO? Please let me know if that's. Let's scroll down the bottom. See if that helped. If I got close, close on that one. When I speak in these terms, I never quite know if I got it. Yeah. So please let me know. Please, please, please. Me 23, yes, GP, balance, yeah. Jay, I picked up this book by Dr. John Delaney, Balance, Building a Non-Anxious Life. Although I kind of had an idea where it was going, I was glad to hear that anxiety isn't the problem, but it's an alarm going off in your body trying to get your attention. He was talking about stuff like how we're not broken and self-growth is okay, but don't make it into a god. Yeah, there's like 6 daily practices he suggests, but the basic message was to, I think, be with the feeling of anxiety rather than finding distractions to numb it. Yes, you can take it a bit further than that as well, because if it's a chronic sense of anxiety, it's the sign of a real trauma, and by that I mean a physiological trauma. And physiologically, the trauma is the freeze state. And I'll just take a brief moment to go into it, because there's a lot to it. But everybody's aware of fight and flight, but freeze is a natural phenomenon that happens in animals too. You'll see it when the gazelle gets caught by the cheetah. At some point they stop struggling and they just collapse. And it's a strategy, because a lot of animals, if the animal looks dead, their natural aggression is only stimulated when the animal is fighting. If they don't fight, they actually can't do anything and they walk away. So it's a survival mechanism. But if they do start eating them, it also dulls the pain, and they don't experience the pain as they're being killed. In every animal, if in fact it works and the animal goes away and they have another opportunity, there's a shaking and shuddering. The energy that's been built up, in the flight is shaken off. It's discharged, and they get up and they return to normal. Human beings have exactly the same mechanism, but we're the only critter in which that discharge doesn't happen. it can actually get stuck. And that's what a trauma is, a physiological trauma. And that can get stuck to the degree that it begins to affect our lives. It gets physical illnesses, pathologies, different kinds of conditions can emerge, including chronic anxiety, every kind of physical illness, recurring conditions. It can affect finances and relationships, every aspect of our lives. And so the only way for discharging that is through the body. That's why I use tapping, but there's also different kinds of techniques, and there's different ways of doing it. The best I've seen are besides meridian tapping, it's called somatic experiencing, which is developed by Peter Levine. But yes, the first thing is to not. You'll notice that there's all sorts of internal ways we've learned to cope with it. That is, to avoid it. The anxiety comes up. We don't want to feel it. We have ways in which we avoid it. Various kinds of practicing. I mean, all addictions are that. They're a way to not feel it, self-medicate, or even get a prescription for something. That's what all the drugs are for. But it starts by simply being present with it. And eventually, you know, in inner reconciliation, the idea is to allow the body to come to see that the danger is not there anymore. And sometimes the body it'll shudder, just like it does in animals. Sometimes it'll cry, it'll weep, it'll start laughing, it'll get hot, have hot flashes and things like that. And that's the discharge. That's the discharge of the energy. But that's what you're looking for. If some kind of a physical thing takes place, because it's literally an energy in the body. So it starts with simply the willingness to be present with it, but there's got to be the creation of an inner environment of safety, so that it's able to, the nervous system itself is able to have the space in which it can discharge the energy that's been built up. That's the process in a nutshell. David and Elaine. Gee, could we also describe the awakened mind as awareness waking up to the fundamental reality of mind, and that being the movement and activity of itself, the ripple in the ocean of consciousness? Yes, the awakened mind, actually the surrendered mind, the fully awakened mind is gone beyond even the surrendered mind, right? The fully awakened mind is, you could think of it as the fully integrated mind. It's where there is no longer any difference between the pure awareness, pure mind, pure being, pure self, pure consciousness. It is simply one. The manifest and the unmanifest, the dual and the non-dual, the absolute and the relative, being and non-being. There is no distinction anymore at all. We don't even need words at this point, because when it's one, there are no words. You can't have an awareness and not an awareness. You can't have a mind and awareness. You can't have being and non-being. I mean, if everything's blue, then there's no such thing as blue, right? Everything just, there's no more categorizations of anything. And so, yes, we can speak about mind as awareness aware of itself. We can speak of consciousness as the manifest, which is awareness aware of itself. We can speak of everything, around us. This is mind. Right? The universe is mind. So yeah, the fundamental reality of mind is awareness, and the activity of awareness is mind. The ripple on the ocean of consciousness. Yeah. I mean, that's what you call that a thought, right? And thought is the atom of mind. Just really, we can play very poetically with all the different ways in which we can put it, and we'll have a lot of fun sitting over tea for eternity, just finding different ways to say it. So I'll meet you for coffee. Andrew Robinson, hi G. The self-organizing of individual units towards greater complexity from the atom to the body of the solar system is truly, it is fascinating, yes. I think complexity theory is what got me started on this crazy path. Yes, it is. And when you see that it is without a self, right? Then it's self-organizing, but there's no self. It's like, I think it was Niels Bohr. Was it Niels Bohr? Niels Bohr said a lot of really great things about quantum. He said, if you aren't completely and totally mystified by quantum, you've never really seen quantum. And he also said that which we regard as real is made up of that which cannot be regarded as real. So when we actually have to water all this stuff down, which unfortunately scientific materialism does. It waters things down and just really takes these objects and solidifies them to the degree. It just misses the utter complexity and intricacy of it all, and therefore misses the poetry of it. The mind-boggling interdependency of it at every single level. At every single level of it, you have a completely different universe. And probably the most amazing thing of it all is our capacity as consciousness to inhabit every single one of those universes, every single one of those dimensions simultaneously. Not just the dimension we're experiencing here at our level of our senses, which is a wonderful thing in and of itself. We've got, movies and tea and romance and books, but we have all this other stuff too. It's yes. To take a step back, it's just breathtaking, and at every single level, you find the expression of I am. At every single level, that's the theme you find. Wow. Jillian's, do you have tips to stay in the awareness during ego deaths while the person is fighting to pretend it's being me? Yeah. Tips. Yes, I do. Okay. The key here is the recognition, to truly abide in the recognition is to understand that there's not a you that is staying in the awareness. You are the awareness. The sense that you are going in and out of the awareness is the ego that is dying. And the ego isn't a thing that lives or dies. It's a fiction. Bugs Bunny can't die because he doesn't exist. He only exists in the imagination. So the ego death, it's only an activity, right, in consciousness that has been believed to be an actual thing. And so it feels like an actual thing. I mean, I'm not putting that down. It's not, it's not like, It's not like you're silly because you've been believing this. It's an activity in the nervous system. The nervous system has organized itself, behaviors and programmed responses. The conditioning has all organized itself around this imagined self, this projected self that only exists as this idea, this invisible concept. And it doesn't actually have a real existence. But the feelings, the thoughts, all the conditioned patterns give it a sense of actual presence when there's nothing there. That's the no self, right? They are acting out as if there was something there, when in fact the only substance to it is the fact that they're acting it out. Did you follow that? Right? They're acting out a part, but there's no real character there, right? It's like they're acting all the parts in the play, and the main character doesn't exist. Bugs Bunny doesn't exist. Okay? So now you don't need to try to stay in the awareness, right? Notice there's a duality there, that there's a you and then there's the awareness, like that's some state you get to. If you hold that idea, then you're always going to be chasing it, right? You're always going to be trying to get to it. And I would ask then, okay, if you are trying to stay in the awareness, who are you? Who is the you that's trying to stay in the awareness? That's the one I want to meet, because that's you. That's the one that you really are, aren't you? And isn't that the one that's actually aware? So that other awareness is just a concept. That's just a spiritual idea. Right? The you that's trying to stay is the one that's aware, isn't it? That's the one that's hearing my words, not the one we're talking about, the one you're trying to stay in. The one that's trying to stay in is the one that's aware. So aren't you already there? Haven't you always been there? Can you ever get out of it? Right now, try to get out of that awareness. Move real fast. See. Real fast. See. Real quick. You can't do it. You're already it. This is the revelation. You're already that. You don't have to do anything. So take a nice breath. Oh yeah, that's right. And just let that sink in and do the work. And whenever you forget, you go, oh yeah, that's right. I'm already that. I don't have to get anywhere. Right? The ego doesn't have to die because it was never alive. What we call an ego death is simply this truth of who I am, gently, gradually, in its own good time, is just dissolving out of the system, everything unlike itself. It's reorganizing the conditioning around who I really am, right? And sometimes that's going to be uncomfortable because the conditioning is really kind of stuck on this imaginary character. And it's disorienting. It's a little uncomfortable, even a little fearful, because it needs a reference point. You don't. But the nervous system does. It needs a reference point. It doesn't like not knowing who it is. But little by little, the truth itself, very lovingly, very gently, is just dismantling that, just bringing come on guys, it's bringing everybody around here, around the truth of you. This is a very loving, very gentle thing. It is not harsh. It's not boom. It's not beating ego over the head, right? It is just very lovingly reorganizing all the troops around the real you. And it does it in its own time. You don't need to feel a personal sense that somehow you have to do it. The you that thinks it has to do it is part of the conditioning. Right? You just remain. Oh, right. That's right. I'm it. I'm it. That's right. Oh, right. I'm already that. That's all you have to do. The rest will take care of itself. Does that help? Does that help, Jillian's? If you need more, please tell me. KO, perfection. Thank you, KO. Just went back, make sure I got the question right. Good. Elaine, hi GP. I get very nervous about interacting with people, especially in public, because I feel like my inner turmoil is blocking my authentic self. It feels like a wall between myself and others. I'm working through your Just Allow It course and it helps. Do you have any advice for me? I feel fear when I look in people's eyes because I feel like people can sense my inner turmoil and issues, and I fear people see through me. Right, yeah, I get it. Well, yeah, they don't, right? I can assure you they don't. And you're just projecting on, but it's okay. It's okay. Well, first off, just keep doing just just allow it. The thing about just allow it is that, yeah. You know, I'm gonna have you send me an email, support@gpwalsh.com, because I want to recommend some more physical exercises for you. Because I think you need some body stuff, right, to help physically discharge some of the traumatic material, both cultural and personal that you've experienced. Simple things, like well, here's one you can do right now. Put your right hand on your side, and put your left hand on your right arm, and just take a breath and just kind of let it out like this. You can all try this. It's a very grounding exercise. It gives a very nice container. It makes the body feel, it's kind of like a hug, but it makes the body feel contained, right? Safe, contained. Relax your shoulders. And just breathe. And just do that for a moment, a minute or two. These are discharging exercises you can do. And so I've got a couple more I can show you if you send me. Anybody else wants some of those, you can send me an email as well. There's some very simple ones you can do that really kind of help release some of the traumas. Some chanting works too, believe it or not. One of the things that I've really discovered is that, especially these days, that we need a lot more emotional work for spiritual people. what can I say? That it's just kind of a sign of the times that we're in. So emotional and physical work, yeah. Because this is a very strange time that we're living through. So, hello, Peter. Good to see you. Jennifer, I'm going to try this with my kid. Shake it off and qigong. There's the, yeah. I love that shaking exercise on the in the tree. I have a rebounder, a little trampoline. I do the shaking thing. When I've spoken to audiences, especially if I end up speaking in a slot that's like right after lunch, I'll do shaking, the qigong shaking with them. Otherwise, it's a little harder work to keep people awake if it's right after lunch. Even though I'm very entertaining, after lunch it's still a challenge. Yeah. Dear G, concerning Ava, there is no self. It means for me there's experiencing, but there's no experiencer. There's only witnessing of the experience. If there's no experiencer, there's no suffering. Do I grasp it? Or rather, there's no sufferer, there is suffering. Yeah, if there's no suffering, it really boils down to just a pure experience, right? It's just an experience. You would call it pain. You wouldn't necessarily call it suffering. You could call it suffering, right? Yeah, I mean, it's pain. It's painful, right? The pain is painful, right? But there's nothing additional on top of it. There's no resistance to it. There's not a sense of, this is terrible, when it's going to stop. There's no mental agitation on top of it. There's no emotional characterization of it. There's no sense of that. Why did I do this? Why is this happening to me? And there's none of that on top of it. You don't see that in animals, right? It can have enormous amount of pain, but animals in the wild, you will see suffering in animals when they're caged, right? When they're mistreated, when they're abused, you see suffering in them then, because now they're contained. They can't function the way they're supposed to. They're supposed to. When they are disconnected from their own natural functioning, then animals do. Right? But that's easily correctable by getting them into an environment which is natural for them, which is loving and accepting it, and the like, which is what has to happen to us. But unlike animals, we will create that within ourselves. So just putting us in the environment is a very important step, but then we have to be able to do that within ourselves. And so that's kind of part of the it's part of the deal. I'm lost in that. If there's no suffer, there's not suffering. There's only experiencing. That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, yeah. I mean, remember, it's words, right? And don't get hung up on the words. It's okay to say that it's suffering, right? That there's suffering, but there's no sense of suffering. The end of suffering becomes pure experiencing. But we're using words and defining them precisely so that we can be clear about what the meaning is behind it. There is an experience. It's painful, can be excruciating, but it's just the experience as it is. There's nothing additional added on top of it. There's no psychological or emotional overhead that has nothing to do with what is actually happening in the moment. And there's where the line is. We can call it, if it's just pain, if it's exactly what's happening here, if it's a residue of the past, if it's psychological interpretation, if it's emotional residue, then we can call that suffering. Or we can call it suffering that's just happening in the moment. That's okay. So now you can see the definitions I'm using, so that we're clear about the meaning, right? If it's simply what's happening right now, experienced purely as it is right now, that's one thing. When it is extra stuff, extra resistance, extra interpretation, extra overhead, that's the stuff that we clear away. That's completely unnecessary. Mark Anthony, I, not other than I. Yes. As Ramana Maharshi put it, the I removes the I and yet remains the I. Subtle stuff. Mark Anthony, lovely quote from Russell Williams. Oh, Jillian, I recognize this when I'm in awareness, but when my mind is taking over, it's difficult for me not to believe it's me. If that makes sense. It's quiet. I know that, yes, yeah. But that's okay, right? Then go, oh, look, there I am all messed up again. Look at that. See if you can just, yep, there I go again. Right? Because it happens. Oh, there I'm doing it again. And you can feel the intensity about it, right? So, oh, damn, there I go again. Yeah. Yeah. And then when you come back to that place and it is clear, you go, yeah, it happened again, right? Really, this is the cultivation of the heart, right? The surrendered mind, right? Yeah, it's probably going to happen again. And just that capacity to just completely surrender to the moment, it really speeds up the progress. It's also confusing for the mind, but thank you. I know there's nothing for me to do. Yeah, except love yourself. Yeah, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. Yeah, to just really allow the process to fulfill itself. Right? You didn't choose this path, it chose you. Nobody chooses this. Again, from Balyani, my favorite lines. God takes the last step on the journey that never happened. It's always a wrestling with the notion that somehow I'm doing it and I have to do it. God takes the last step on the journey that never happened. Oh, so profound. Just started reading his book, Mark Anthony. I don't know Mark Anthony. Do not know him, other than the character from the Greek play. Devi Naga. Hello, Devi. Hello, GP. A thought has been reappearing of I don't want to be seen. It's a fear. Wondering what could be the root cause of it. I mean, as a belief. Well, Devi, here's what I would recommend. Instead of saying what's the root cause, I would instead just say, okay, there's a thought and a feeling here of not wanting to be seen. And I'm just going to let myself be present with that feeling and that fear. Now, the reason I say that is because we want to resolve these things energetically, because the mind always wants to resolve it in such a way that it just kind of gets rid of it, which isn't really a resolution at all. And the thing is that when the mind tries to resolve it, it can come up with reasons why it's there that aren't really true. It can come up with an origin that isn't the actual origin. What surfaces as some kind of a symptom up here, right? It can be a physical symptom, it can be a fear, it can be a sense that I don't want to be seen. Can actually have an originating event that doesn't have anything to do with this, right? It may not make any logical sense or connection whatsoever. And so we can't really trust that there'll be a connection that would make any sense to our minds. Which is why I say don't look for it. Instead, just be with it. Whatever needs to be revealed will be revealed itself. And as irrational as it may be, if the energy itself reveals an origin, you go, yeah, it's obvious, and it's irrational. But the beauty is, in order for something to be healed, you don't necessarily need to know where it came from. And even when it does reveal something, what it reveals may not actually have even been it. It may just need to give you some kind of an image that represents something. And it could be more archetypal or dreamlike and not be actually something real. I've had that happen in me. Something, it was obviously never happened. It was completely unreal. Or sometimes it could appear to be something like from a past life. And there's no way of telling whether it was or not. And so that's why I say the root cause is there's going to be a root cause. We know that, right? You don't need to know it. That is consciously. Whatever this is, knows it, right? And so all you have to do is, you know what? You know what it is. If you want to tell me, fine. I'll listen. If you don't want to, that's fine too. What do I need? What do you need from me? I'm here. What do you need to do? What do you need from me in order for you to feel safe enough to release this? And then just be with it. Because and let go of any desire to get rid of it or anything. Have no agenda whatsoever. Just let your heart open to it. Think of it as inside of you. There's just a frightened little girl, right? Who for some reason, got really hurt, and so doesn't want to be seen. Right? It's safer to not be seen, because if she's seen, she's going to get hurt. Right? She's certain of it, because it really did happen at some point, right? Somehow, some way. We don't need to know why. Maybe too embarrassing for us to know why. Right? Maybe traumatizing for it to be revealed why. She doesn't want that to happen again. She doesn't want anybody to know. So we don't need to know. It's fine. It's your secret. You don't have to tell anybody. Not even me. But it's okay. It's safe. You can be seen by you can be seen by me. That you don't have to show me that, but you can be. You're safe. So just remember, all traumatic things are some kind of a violation of a boundary. And sometimes thinking that we have to expose the traumatic event is just another violation of the same boundary, and it's just re-traumatizing, so we don't have to do it. So instead, just whatever that hurt little part is, just make it safe. That's it. That's all you have to do. There's a part of you that doesn't want to be seen. And there's obviously another part that really does want to be seen. Wants to be loved, right? Wants to really be intimate, which means be seen, be really taken in. And just feel that. Just feel both sides of that. And if you're feeling any tension in your body right now, just kind of let it go. Just relax. Like this, see if you can open up your body a bit. If you're feeling any kind of clench, just kind of let it relax. And don't rush it. Just sit like that. Yeah. You don't need to know there's a belief there, right? You don't need any of that. Just your only job is to make it safe for yourself to be yourself. That's it. And that means it's safe for all the parts of you to be whatever they are. It's safe for them to come out, to reveal as much or as little as they want, but it's safe for them right now. They can be angry, they can be resistant, they can whatever they want. Playful. So just do that. Just give yourself that space. And if you do any EFT or anything like that, just keep that spirit when you're doing it. Don't do anything in an attempt to heal anything. I know that sounds strange, but our attempt to heal is often misguided. Right? We're only here to make a safe place. Right? You don't need to try to heal. The body knows what to do. You just have to make it safe for it to do it. Once it's safe, it looks around. Oh, it's safe. It'll do the rest. Let me know if that helps you, Debbie. Love that name, by the way. Thank you, G. How it is. Not first time you answer me this question. Listening to you, I feel clear about that. And after some time, again, there's some doubt about that. Yeah. Jillian's, yeah, I didn't choose this at all. Why people see ego death is a question to me. It's a question to me. Well, it's actually become kind of a popular thing, right? But if they actually had experienced an ego death, they wouldn't use that phrase. Right? Because they would see that the ego isn't an entity at all. Right? But all it means is that temporarily they had a feeling of oneness. Right? But there's not an awareness of the vasanas, the deeper underlying, the very subtle sense of self that is of yet. Is still very there. The seeds are the vasanas, the repository consciousness. David Diego, off topic. Dusted off my drum set after not playing for 15 years. Want to know who your favorite drummer is that got you interested in playing drums? Well, I don't remember because I was like 5. I just really liked it. But then there was like that was just all over the place, right? I mean, Ringo Starr, obviously, right? Who's still admired by the best of drummers. But then, then there was like Ginger Baker and Mitch Mitchell and all the Clive Bunker with Jethro Tull. And then, Bill Bruford and, oh God. And of course, then, all the great Jack DeJohnette and Steve Gadd and on and on and on and on the list goes, right? Elvin Bishop, all the great jazz drummers, right? Buddy Rich, Neil Peart. Oh, good God, right? The list goes on and on. Oh, Lisa's very happy Debbie asked that. Jay, God takes the last good contemplation, but a bad quote to put on the bathroom mirror. Okay. Debbie said, a release just happened. Thank you. I'm watching the crying and the body just got a relief. Thank you so much for your love and light and beautiful heart. Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Jennifer, hearts, hearts, hearts. The ego needs love. Yes. The sense of self, right? The sense of self needs love. Everything needs love. Everything. Love is the water that grows the plants, right? I mean, it was the absence of love that created all our problems. I mean, isn't it obvious that it's only the presence of love that heals it? I mean, to me, that's just like, duh. What else? What else could it possibly be? Ah, I'm so happy, Devi, that I felt that. It's that capacity to let go of the need to know. That's the surrendered mind I was talking about in the beginning. Because the awakened mind, it surrenders to what it knows. Right? It isn't arguing, right? And to the degree we've awakened, to that degree we've surrendered. We started to let go. Right? When we first begin to awaken to these things, we do kind of struggle with it, right? There's a struggle between what you come to see and the old habits and the stuff that our life's gone this way, and it's like, really, can I trust this? It's like, what's going to happen if I really? And it takes some time, and it's okay. Jill, have you experienced the dark night of the soul? What was your experience like? It's the emptiness, separation from source that hurts the most. Well, the dark night of the soul is, yes, I have. More than once. It's something that reoccurs. It's not a one and done, right? It's something that it pops up at various times when something, we find some new place in us that isn't surrendered, some new place where we realize that we're still kind of holding on to the old way of doing things, or life circumstances just kind of forces us to recognize places where we're still holding on to things that are no longer serving us, or we're exposed to something that opens our eyes to some aspect of ourselves that is still suffering, and we're turning a blind eye to it, right? Some part of ourselves that's still suffering, and we're not even realizing it, right? Oftentimes, our lives contract, and we don't know why. Circumstances like begin to squeeze us, and we go, wait, I thought everything was going good. I thought I had it down. And all of a sudden it's like, that's a dark night of the soul. It doesn't have to be this, this great pain or sorrow, right? It can be, that big bill that comes out of nowhere, where suddenly you're strapped. Right, and you're back to eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ramen for a while, or the breakup you weren't expecting, or you're thrown for a loop. The places where you've grown dependent, that where it's time to become independent, to wake up more, to wake up the surrender, the trust more, to do a little bit more exploration, to explore some of the as of yet unresolved traumatic material. There's always that more room for growth. It's always I think it even happens for the fully enlightened people. It's interesting when you note that Buddha died of dysentery. That's a very unpleasant way to die. Well, that's one of the stories. Another story, he died of food poisoning for eating tainted pork. There are different versions of it. Christ died an unpleasant death, if that story is true. Ramana had rheumatoid arthritis his whole life. You notice he always stands sideways. It's because he was bent. Nisargadatta was throat cancer. Right? So you look at at people's lives. There's all sorts of these kinds of challenges. So we shouldn't look at life, through the eyes of like the law of attraction, like it's supposed to be this wonderful rose-strewn path. It's not supposed to be. To do that is to think of it that way is to set ourselves up for thinking that we're always making a mistake, that we're not doing anything right. Scott, can you give me a pointer or analogy to help see how I'm not doing acting so I don't resist thinking I can and need to do? I'm not not quite sure I'm following this, Scott. Can you give me a pointer or analogy to help see how I'm not doing acting so I don't resist thinking I can and need to do? I'm not. Can you reword that, Scott? I'm not quite getting that. How challenging are challenges in your life nowadays, Gene? I can get knocked on my ass. I just did. I just had a huge car repair bill come out of nowhere. And I live on a shoestring. I live very simply, close to the bone. So I keep all my expenses very, very minimal. So I can keep my classes all very minimal. And I put all this stuff on for free. So when I get hit with a big bill, it's just like, voomp, puts me right up to the limit. And it's like, oof, okay. So now what? Now what do we do? This happens. This is what life is like. So you go, okay, what do you do with that? And I do exactly the same thing I tell everybody else to do, right? You use it as the opportunity to dig in deeper. You watch the reaction that it has. You watch what it brings up. You watch the feelings. You watch what it brings out in you. I read a beautiful storybook. I heard Gabor Mate mention it. And so I got it and read it. You can read it in like 15 minutes. It's a children's book for adults. And it's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And there's a line on one page. And the boy asks the horse, says, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" And the horse says, "Help." Yeah. So it's an amazing thing. When life challenges us, it makes us reach in, deep in our hearts, pull down everything that's in the way, and reach out. Reach in and reach out. Break everything down. Right? Become more vulnerable, become more tender, become more loving, become more honest, become more real. And that's always what I've striven for. Strived for? Striven? I guess. So challenging, there will always be challenges. I can't say what Ramana experienced personally. There's just no way. How can I? I simply can't, right? I would have loved to have had a conversation with him. Any of the people that I've admired, I would just have loved to have had a conversation with them to see what their personal experience was, right? To get to know who these people are. I've had the wonderful opportunity to speak with some, people who are regarded as Zen masters, to find out the personal experience of it. And it's not the rarefied thing that people think it is. It's very much feet on the ground, right? Stomach aches and nosebleeds that everybody else experiences. But it is a different relationship with life. It's one that is one that's actively engaged and very human, right? It's allowing life to break the heart open so that one is loving and compassionate, because that's the point. Dorothy Day, why, in the midst of the earthquake, why can't we be like this all the time? The psychological studies done on the effect of wealth on people, the more wealth that was accumulated, the less empathetic people were, the more hearts got hardened, the more isolated they became. And if you look at the life of billionaires, they are extremely insulated. They don't do their own shopping. The only contact they have with people other than other billionaires and the like are their servants, people who work for them. They don't take any public transportation. They get driven around in limos. They don't fly commercial. They don't do their own shopping. But the studies were equally telling in that it only took a small bit of empathetic training, of exposing these people to genuine suffering, that broke that wall down in a hurry. And so it doesn't take much except to be exposed to suffering. The story of the Buddha, right? Siddhartha, a prince, everything you could possibly want, completely detached. He was a billionaire's son, basically, right? Completely detached by the pain and suffering of others, from the pain and suffering of others. When he was finally exposed to it, right, just to pain, to suffering, to illness, to old age, to death, it just tore him apart to the point where he left his life and went out seeking the answer to suffering. There we are. Sorry about that, folks. I forgot to plug in the computer. Sorry about that. My bad. My amazing technical prowess got us again. Anyway, where was I? Right. Our humanness. Case in point, yes. It's that's what the surrendered mind is all about. Let's see. Mary, I think that's the reason we all miss the Enlightenment, see, because we hold images of how we think it should be. Exactly so. I think my mission in life here is to humanize it. Because I'm not that. I am definitely. That's why I love Nisargadatta. I relate to Nisargadatta so much, because he's just, he lived his whole life in the slum in Mumbai, and he was just this character, and he chain smoked. I mean. It was just, and I guess, people who knew him, it didn't get into the books, but he was really quite off color, and he's just a very colorful character, right? He was not at all the image of the saintly, the saintly guy. And so it's it's very, very approachable, very, very real. And I think we really have to, I've seen, Muji lately is wearing normal clothes. He isn't wearing the robes and stuff. He won't let people kiss his feet or bow down to him or any of that stuff anymore. He's wearing his ski vests and things like that. We really have to demystify the whole process, because this is the time for mass awakening. This is a time for a mass awakening of kindness. This is what we need. A kindness. This is what the world needs. It doesn't need a Messiah, a savior, a second coming. It needs a massive heart opening. It's the only thing that's going to save us from ourselves. It is. I would much rather err on. I think the real character of Christ was much more like that. I mean, he hung out with the drunks and the prostitutes. He was criticized for that. I think he was, and he turned water into wine. Do you think he wasn't drinking it? and the host even commented it was better wine. I'm sure it was. Say, hey, why'd you save the good stuff for the end? I think we should get real. So much of it has been mythologized over there, like it always is, right? I mean, these and they freeze us, they paralyze us. We end up romanticizing these characters. We make them idyllic heroes rather than archetypes, rather than models to be used as something for us to as a model for us to use to explore our own inner territory, to find the ideal within ourselves. We see it as some kind of extraordinary character that we're just supposed to worship off in the distance, and that cuts us off from what's available to all of us. All the gods and goddesses are within us. All the heroes are within us. That's the point of all of that. Christ, Buddha, they're in us. The Buddha nature is you. The Christ consciousness is you. And the human you, the you, the one that's sitting here there right now, right? The one that's having trouble in the relationship, the one that's looking for a job. This one right here is Buddha nature. Where else are you going to find it if not here? Where else is God if it's not right here? Oh, geez. So I'm going to be the I'm going to be the incompetent sage, I guess. Yeah, that'd be a good. That would be a good title. The clumsy sage who doesn't plug in his computer. Yes, Mary. We have images of what we think we're supposed to be, and if we do that, none of us is going to make it. We're all going to miss the boat. Hey, I've seen pictures of Shiva smoking Mary Jane. I remember it pissing me off back in the day. Mark Anthony, so glad I stumbled across this stream, or maybe I was led to here. Thank you. Oh, glad you're here. Same Mark Anthony people were talking about? I don't know. Oh, Lisa, the more we feel pressure to expose, reveal the secret, the more we can feel the upcoming judgment. It's waiting for us. That just pushes it back down and suppress it. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to reveal anything. You hear me saying that with people doing sessions. No, you don't want to tell me, don't tell me. You don't have to. This isn't true confessions. Yeah, that can be very exposed. That same thing, right? No more violations. No more violations. I disappeared. Yes, that's right. I forgot to plug and you know what? I saw it before I went live. Oh yeah, I got to plug the computer in so I don't blank out on everyone. And then I completely forgot. Surrender to the internets, the gods, the internet. Yes, I didn't make the proper sacrifice today. Grounded life problems. Tech keeps you on your toes. I think if you're humanizing it, I would not be here if you were any other way. Thank you. Getting out of my robes. Welcome back. It's cool to think you are just as us, quirks and all. In many ways, even worse. I'm good at this because I've fucked up more than any of you. David said, I had plans for today since there was no satsang schedule, but thanks so much for doing this. Oh, you're welcome. Elaine, why is the mass awakening happening now at this time? Agree with you. Mary says, I agree with you, Mary. I don't know. Because it has to? Because if it doesn't, we're fucked? In Buddhism, there's the archetype of the Maitreya Buddha, the Buddha that is to come. And Buddha, and this is the Buddha of love. And the Buddhas run in 2,500 year cycles. And every 2,500 years, there's a new Buddha. And we've come to the end of the Gautama Buddha, which was the Buddha was 2,500 years ago. So the new Buddha, Maitreya Buddha, which is the Buddha to come. And Thich Nhat Hanh made the comment about Maitreya Buddha. He says, the next Buddha doesn't necessarily have to be one person. Could be all of us. And I like that idea. And I, with all my heart, think that that's the case. I think it's all of us. And look around. Even 20 years ago, this wouldn't be happening. Even our little group here, right? And some bigger groups, right? This wouldn't be happening. The internet happened, right? I mean, that only happened 30 years ago. Well, I mean, it happened back in the 60s, but it didn't really, it wasn't until 30 years ago, the World Wide Web, and all of a sudden this thing just started taking off and communicating all around the world constantly. I mean, what's up with that, right? I mean, all of a sudden this capacity, right? And yes, of course, it's being used by, for the worst, kind of propaganda and stupidity, the same normal stuff, right? But this is also happening, right? The same mechanism is the same wires are carrying this, right? And this kind of conversation, this kind of communication is going on. This is portentous. It's absolutely amazing that this kind of interconnection, speaking on this level, with this kind of import, I'm in awe of it, right? And the sheer amount of technology that has happened, that has enabled this in this amount of time. The semiconductor was only invented back in I think it was the late 50s, right? Early 60s, right? The transistor, I mean, it's such a big deal. The transistor radio, right? The radio used to be this big thing, right? And then the TV, which was the size of a washing machine, right? And then transistor radio, the little thing you put in your pocket. I mean, it kept getting smaller and smaller. All of this could be happening. So this could happen. This whole thing, when you look at it, it's just like the stage being set for this kind of thing to happen. This is all I could. This is. It just seems inevitable to me. And it would also seem to me that the more momentum this kind of message has, the more it sinks into the heart, the more its transformational power takes root in more hearts, the more this love begins to awaken, the more it's going to push to the surface all of the nastiness, the brutality, the stupidity, the greed, the cruelty. The more it's going to push it to the surface, it's going to make it more virulent. It's going to make it more greedy. It's going to make it more graspy. It's going to make the hungry ghost hungrier as it exposes it in all of its naked ugliness. But remember, there's nobody to blame. There's no evildoer out there. There's no, group of conspirators out there, no Illuminati that's, plotting and planning. These are just seeds of materialistic, egoistic thinking that have taken root in many different minds, right? That have yet to be exposed to that individual. Right? They're still identified with it. And are so mesmerized by the fruits of it and all the power in it and all everything they're getting from it, that they are completely ignorant of the depth of their own suffering and the suffering they're inflicting on others. And as they become aware of that, you're just going to see it collapse. And at some point, I think you're going to see a mass exodus of their ranks. Anyway, that's my delusion, and I'm sticking to it. Perhaps you fucked up, but you never know how much of us have. Wait, we're one. Mary Sykes, agree with you, Mary. Uh, got a laugh right now. It's cool to think you're just as us, Mary. Yeah, but it's about Maitreya Buddha. It looks like that. I want to thank everyone for their questions. They helped me with what I'm dealing with. Yeah, we're in other religions that Jesus is coming back. Meant it's consciousness awakening. Yeah, it's happening by God, through God, and in God. Source for the real I. Thank you, G, today for your love and wisdom, for being here. Hopefully that delusion comes true. Amen, brother. Amen. In my mind, it already has. All right, my lovely friends. Until next time, I will hold you all dear in my hearts. Love you all. Namaste.